It is with great horrible pain that we must announce that if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device and all of its related projects on this channel, as you know them, are going on an indefinite hiatus. Now, please, we ask that before you make any rash assumptions, leave any posts or go on a crusade through the comment sections, you listen to this video in its entirety for the full context. I know it is long, but that is only out of necessity. Please. With Games Workshop's new explicitly zero-tolerance policy against fan animations, we no longer feel it tenable to produce Warhammer fanworks at this time. I want to go on and address several points people will make in response to this. One, many argue that our work lies firmly under various different parody and pastiche laws. You might be right about that. We are not copyright or IP legal professionals, but this, unfortunately, simply does not matter. We cannot see a future under the sword of Damocles, under rickety laws that are constantly attacked by copyright lobbyists, and under two companies, both GW and YouTube, that would take action against the channel even if it, in theory, has no legal grounds. The situation I am in right now, with a mortgage to pay and a child to take care of, I am in no place to dedicate however many years it would take to fight a legal battle against a massive foreign corporation under incredible financial duress and under intense public scrutiny in order to safely continue on with this. I cannot do that to myself, and I especially cannot do that to my family, especially now with my newborn son in the equation. 2, some of you will then argue that this would never happen. GW would never pull off a frivolous lawsuit and waste resources against a meager fan work, also knowing the risk that they could lose. Again, you might just be right, but again, I am not willing to take that risk. I was under the staunch impression for the past few years that GW was evolving out of their archaic draconian legal methods and that they had realized the worth of fanworks. But then they do a 180 and establish a zero-tolerance policy against them. I do not know how far they are willing to go to protect their IP, especially with an incentive to monopolize 40K content through a streaming service, and I do not want to find out. 3, some of you might ask that we at least check with GW if continuing this is alright. Perhaps we can get a license, perhaps we can get in on their new streaming service. Ignoring the fact that we have been incredibly disenfranchised by these new policies, and also the several allegations made against the company and its work practices in recent weeks, there are several other issues. First is, the leads at GW quite likely have an image of what they want 40K to look like in the eyes of an evolving audience. It is equally likely that TTS simply does not fit within this vision. Second is, TTS by its nature has through the years made constant, unabashed references to and grabbed material from multiple different sources outside of GW's jurisdiction. It would probably demand a lot of reworking to make it fit into the Warhammer Plus catalog. TTS would almost certainly have to be changed significantly, and I do not think people want that. And finally, taking all this into account, this decision is one that more than likely is going to be made by legal, and legal only. Typically, in a company of GW size and structure, each department is like an individual silo, with the only real communication between these different silos going through the various team leads and directors. Legal operates according to their roles, and that job is not to be Warhammer fans. It is to be the legal department of the company. The current zero tolerance policy, for instance, was in all likelihood made by them. If it involved a partnership with marketing or the streaming content team, we simply do not know. So, should we contact GW? No. We feel that legal will likely make a move on its own, based on its own definition of the question, without regards for potential ramifications, because that's generally how siloed companies like GW work. So us approaching GW to ask about the continued existence of TTS is, in all likelihood, going to end up in them telling us a big fat no, we have a zero tolerance policy towards fan animation, and then, as they become officially aware of TTS's existence, they are likely going to have to follow their own policy and will have, at best, the channel demonetized, and at worst, the entire channel and Patreon struck down. All of which is, of course, a risk I do not want to take for all the aforementioned reasons. This all sucks. And we are so tired. And honestly, we have been tired for a long time now. This update to the policy, specifically focusing on fan animations, was the final humongous pile of straw that broke our backs. Despite this consistent tiredness and anxiety, the thing that has kept us going is our love for Warhammer running so disgustingly deep. 8 years of running this show, from when we were shitty, edgy little adolescents to big bloated adults, and I have been genuinely invested in this franchise this entire time, and at no point have I just been working on this project because I feel it's my job. It's been a passion project through and through, and I desperately hope that has come across in the videos. Even if, in the grand scheme, it is just a shitty little fanfiction. It's one made with real passion, real love, and real joy. And that is, of course, why this decision has turned me into a fucking meatball of despair. A future under this GW, or at least these policies, is untenable. So as minor as such an update, unheralded, unannounced, might be in GW's eyes, the indefinite hiatus of TTS will have to serve as our statement. With that, though, I wish to bring up why we have specified indefinite hiatus instead of cancelled. We do not want to cancel it, so instead we shelve it. Our hope is that should GW at some point in time in the far future change their policies and become explicitly more amenable to fan work such as ours, then we will return to TTS. And we know that this is possible. Theoretically. We have seen companies that are on the exact opposite side of the spectrum in regards to how to treat fan works. They not only accept them, but actively support them. These companies gain tremendous amounts of goodwill from their audiences for this. So they gain free advertisement, of course, and they recognize that by keeping these projects within the fandom, they mitigate the risk of having these people, say, turn their project into an original work and then sell it in spite of it being clearly based on another IP, or whatever. GW's hostility has lost them far more goodwill than anything else throughout the years. Now, if GW should change one day, then we will inevitably be drawn back in, because our love of the universe runs deep and we want to finish the story. Not only that, but I want new plastic Tyranids. I want to play more Necromunda. I want to continue to build my Beastman Stealer cult that I love. There are a lot of things I still want from Warhammer. But with the series itself, I feel like I need to distance myself from the franchise as well, which makes it kind of feel like a nasty breakup in a way. However, I want to say, if GW should change tomorrow or next week or even next month, we will still not return immediately. No way. This is purely down to trust and goodwill. We would need to see that there is an explicit acceptance of fanworks that isn't just mere platitudes, and that they won't change their mind again than the week after. We want to see change, we want to see it in practice, and we want to take our time to confirm it. On the other hand, however, if GW just will not change ever, if it takes years and years and years and nothing changes on their end, then we will return to our project anyway. Just not in the way that it currently exists. I want to give assurance to our core audience, the viewers who have followed us for years and years and have, like us, some kind of relationship with the characters through the series' run. We wish to take these personalities and conclude their story within an original setting. This will also not be a reboot, but a spiritual successor with all foreign intellectual property scrubbed away and made truly ours. This should be a story that you will be able to recognize in a future so deep that all has changed yet much remains the same, or something. Either of these alternatives will happen. That is the one thing we can guarantee. Unless I, die, or my channel gets destroyed forever and I'm banned from the internet, ogre attack. Nevertheless, this is all in the future. What will happen now? Going forward, we will expand to other licenses we have a passion for. Licenses specifically owned by companies that we know give explicit consent and support to fan creators who want to work on fan projects, be they monetized or not, without repercussions. Immediately, we know that this is a great risk. Channel upon channel upon channel on YouTube has fallen into obscurity because they choose to change their content. We are aware this fall might happen to this channel, and it is the thing that gives me the most anxiety about all this. We do not wish to alienate our already established viewer base by just throwing at you a brand new story with brand new characters in a brand new setting. To mitigate the risks and to try and attain as much of your interest and goodwill as possible, we are working hard to make the transition as smooth as we can into whatever new settings we choose to explore. We will assume that the majority watching will be unfamiliar with whatever setting we use, and thus we will try to have it explored and explained, just like how TTS did. For this purpose, we will also continue to use familiar archetypes from TTS, kind of like how we did in the Stellaris special, to make the ride into these new frontiers as familiar and as comfortable as possible for, well, not only you, but also for us. But just to summarize, we wish to gain explicit permission to work on fan projects in a setting we have genuine passion and interest for, and we wish for our viewers to give these future projects a shot despite not being 40k. To make this easier, we want to make the transition as smooth and as entertaining as possible, so you too can perhaps become obnoxiously invested in a new setting alongside us. Assuming you aren't already invested in whatever we move on to. With that being said, however, no matter what, we do not expect you to eagerly follow us into anything new we make. I am fully aware of the niche within a niche within a niche we have dug ourselves into throughout the years, and that getting out of it is going to be extremely difficult no matter what. We are probably going to suffer the wrath of the YouTube algorithm and the general uninterest of the majority for this move, and that is just how it is going to have to be. We will have to do our damnedest to prove to those willing to give us a chance that whatever we move on to is worth their time, your time, and build a new audience from there. Without doubt, this is one of the things I am most stressed about, and I am chronically desperate in my hope that it will work out for the better in the end. Moving back to TTS, the first 2 parts of TTS episode 30 have been up for a while for free on Patreon. I was intending on releasing the full thing publicly on YouTube once I was done with part 3, which I had worked on quite hard between my son's birth and Zero Tolerance Day. But as you might expect, the situation since then has had me unable to add a single new keyframe. We will release part 1 and 2 to the public in the coming days, and as you will see, if you haven't already, the ending cliffhanger is just where TTS will have to sit for however long it'll have to take. To my patrons, those who have been the nicest, most understanding, most patient, and most fantastic group of people I've had the pleasure of following me since 2014, I am especially thankful and especially sorry. What with the release of this video being so late in the month, you might be extra upset, which is understandable, entirely understandable. This was something that was not intended, but we had to hash out our thoughts and see if GW would change something or clarify anything in the interim. But for this, I am more than willing to offer refunds, and I implore you that if you are simply not interested in seeing where we go from here, do not feel bad about removing your pledge. We cannot guarantee that TTS will happen again for a long time. Longer even than you're used to. And we also cannot guarantee that the settings we move on to will be something you'll be interested in at all. We are entirely expecting Patreon to drop. We are expecting AdSense to drop, and this is just how it is going to have to be. For the sake of transparency and goodwill, I am going to start up my bi-weekly Patreon updates again and actually stick to them this time. Something anyone can read without being a patron, just so those who stick by us know more precisely what we will be working on going forward and can make a more informed decision about whether or not they want to stay. Also, on a personal note, I am going to try and find a part-time job and work 150% for a while for the sake of mitigating the risk to my family's financial situation. In the end, if worse comes to worse, I will simply have to find another full-time job, and I will return to doing videos in my off time. In the end, what's important is you do you. Your money is your money. Do not spend it on this channel if you feel like it's not interesting to you anymore. In addition, especially for the sake of my patrons, I wish to quickly address the turnaround time for videos as they have been for the past forever. The TTS pipeline has had several bottlenecks that we haven't really had the ability to solve due to the odd way the pipeline has been structured from the beginning. The script work has only recently become more streamlined after years of trying to find something that works. Some of our voice actors are incredibly busy and take months to schedule sessions with, and the animations themselves look incredibly humble, but are actually way too intensive for their aesthetic to be worth the turnaround time, honestly. But we haven't really dared step out of this for the sake of consistency. So going into the future, we are going to become more experimental, which, okay, yeah, again, another thing that will honestly be against us in our attempts to stay relevant, because generally people do not like change, and we already have so much change going on. But what I mean by that primarily is that we want to change the production pipeline for videos. We want to streamline the process. We want to lie far, far ahead in the production cycle for everything from scripts to voice work. We want to return to the glorious days of shorter videos. We want to see if we can make the aesthetics more striking and interesting by experimenting with stuff like motion comics, maybe. And we want to tell some stories that aren't necessarily just grand shitposts. All of these things, stepping out of our comfort zone and learning things we never would have been able to through TTS, and then perhaps returning to it and being able to improve upon it with what we have learned along the way. That would be very good, I think. Getting the chance to do this, even if I know it will have a lot of people uninterested and will fundamentally be another big risk, is one of the few things in this whole horrible hellhole debacle that actually kind of excites me, at least. As for the content already uploaded to the channel, it will, of course, remain up until someone who isn't us takes it down through whatever means. I would never remove it willingly. TTS will stay where it is, and I hope you will be able to continue to watch and enjoy it despite this situation. I hear that some people watch it as a form of comfort, which is something I do with a lot of other YouTubers. It is an important, like genuinely important part of my life, and if people actually have TTS as their like comfort thing, first of all, that is one of the greatest compliments a YouTuber can get, so thank you so much for that. Like, yeah. And secondly, I do not want you to lose that, and I really truly hope this situation won't permanently sour the entire channel for you. Now, oh boy, for some further risk mitigation, which honestly, yeah, I'm sorry, I am in absolute full damage control mode because, again, meatball of despair. Please, I fucking beg of you, to those who would consider it, do not attack GW employees over this. I cannot state strongly enough how this is the absolute and utter last thing that I want, that any one of us wants, or that should happen because of this statement and our decision with the channel. Criticize the company, criticize the monolith, the brand, but do not, under any circumstances, go about attacking those who work for it and within it. Please, Ogre. Also, I would ask anyone to not go, like, on a LARP Space Marine warpath through comment sections, typing Prudge GW, or GW took TTS, time for a crusade, or anything of the sort. Like, I would assume that, like, some, like, a few, like, a minority of people might do this, and, like, I don't want you to do that because, like, that will more than likely annoy people who aren't GW, as well, it's fundamentally annoying, to be honest with you, and I really, truly do not need a backlash to the backlash situation in my life right now, so I'm just telling you this up front as your parasocial pal. I am sorry for this video being so long and such a ramble, but I feel I have to be as transparent as possible in this situation, because all we will be able to live on from here on out is your goodwill. And a part-time job if I can find one. If I land on the bad side of the majority at the end of this, which I desperately hope won't happen, I can kiss this line of work goodbye forever. With all that being said, I can only hope you understand why this decision has been made, and that you do not feel any ill will towards us for it. It hurts, and it has hurt us to make it. It was an incredibly hard decision to make. This has been a fucking horrible week, to be completely honest. Tears have been shed, and we are honestly still just very, very angry, frustrated, upset, and ungodly anxious. But we are also motivated to work hard and do our best to keep this channel from heat death and give you content that you will, at the very least, be willing to give a chance, hopefully, until the hopefully much nicer day when TTS can make its return in one form or another. Thank you for listening. I will now disappear and do something else, and I hope I don't have a stroke immediately upon uploading this video. Have a good one. Thank you.